Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 4 of the Sparks to Skyscrapers podcast. My name is Joe Shapiro, and today we finally have our co-host, Vaughn DeBattista. Vaughn, you can go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience. It's been a long-awaited appearance here for Vaughn. He's been helping us produce this whole podcast since the very beginning, and he finally gets to join us today. So Vaughn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
How's it going, guys? My name is Vaughn DeBattista. I'm the co-host of the Sparks to Skyscrapers podcast. So blessed to be here. I'm a freshman here at Ursinus. And, me and Joe just been working really hard to get this podcast going. And I'm so blessed to be able to finally get on a podcast and talk to everyone.
Today we have two very special guests, Tate and Max, co-founders of Intuition. Guys, go ahead and tell me a little bit about the launch of your brand and what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Tate. I graduated Ursinus College in 2018 with a degree in math. Max and I started this company back up. I guess our LLC was officially approved in February. So we're in the process of web development. But ultimately what Intuition is we're trying to enhance the college student experience. There's no better way to sum it up than those few words. What we're launching first and what we're in web development for is going to be a course review website where students can go on and create a more, transparent process through course registration. There are some tools out there, advisors help as well. What we're really trying to do is get syllabus information out there as soon as possible. So trying to get, numbers of tests that you take, essays, what's their final, things like that, as well as, a little blurb about the class. And same thing goes for the teacher. The same class can be taught by multiple teachers. So we have to include that aspect. But yeah, we're excited about this. We plan on launching, I think, roughly end of May. That right now is where we're at. But we've started, working on merch ideas. We've gotten our logo finalized. So it's definitely a really exciting process.
Absolutely. And this is the first time we've gotten to kind of talk to people that have not exactly started their business yet. And it's a great part of the process to get our audience educated on. So I'm glad that you guys decided to come on. Max, question for you. The goal of Intuition, I know the purpose, but what do you want? What do you see as the goal? What do you see as the big picture?
Well, the big thing is the word transparency. And so big issue in colleges, we can only speak on Ursinus, is that we didn't have access to the syllabus or syllabus-like information when we were looking at different classes to possibly register for. And so, that can be very beneficial to have, because if, let's just say, you go into a class, it might not be what you're expected. It could be too overwhelming. And so we want basically students to have a good understanding and grasp of what that class entails so that they're not blindsided by anything. And the big issue that comes with that is that, let's just say a class is, just too overwhelming. Well, what happens? What do? You might have to take a W, withdrawal, not great on transcripts. Or you might have to drop the class and go for another one, which is even more stressful. College students already have enough stress as it is. And so we just want to create an environment that's, very open, transparent about course registration process, and also a stress-free environment. Absolutely. And so, obviously our goal is to help out as many students and colleges as possible. So, yeah.
So Tate and Max, you guys are both Ursinus graduates, and you guys went into business together. So just tell us about how you guys met and how you guys went into business together.
First, starting out how we first met. It was very early on as freshmen. I lived in BPS and Tate lived in BWC. A lot of our friends now are all BPS, but Tate would often come into BWC and hang out with us. And that's sort of how we met. I think honestly it was in the first couple weeks of freshman year. So it was really quick. And then, we just became friends, and we would just come up with crazy ideas. And, this is kind of how it started, basically.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And with that, what motivated you guys to have this idea for Intuition?
Yeah. So going back to probably this started maybe sophomore year. Freshman year, Max and I were friends. We'd go out, go to the same parties and stuff, but we didn't really study together. In sophomore year, we had more overlapping classes, and we started studying together. And of course, we were both very late night people. We'd be up until 4 or 5 a.m. doing work. And so it ended up being BSing about multi-million-dollar ideas, as we would call it, trying to come up with something like that. And so I don't know exactly. I think it had to be the fall semester of our junior year, a little later in the year after course registration. We were sitting, I think, in like the Thaler Hall or whatever that is, the big lecture hall there.
Where Vaughn is right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And right there is where we just ended up coming up with this kind of idea. It wasn't fleshed out nearly as much as we have now. But we hate to say it, but procrastinating work is actually how we were able to start a business together. It was put on hold for a while. We entered the UC Imagine the Bear Innovation competition at Ursinus our junior year. I'm pretty sure, our junior year. And we ended up putting it on hold after that. And, back in January, we started back up working on it, 70 hours plus a week and getting it to the point that it's at now.
The entrepreneurship comes with hurdles and it comes with challenges. With this process, what have the biggest hurdles been that each of you can answer? What has your biggest hurdle been, biggest difficulty in this whole process?
Starting off, I think Tate and I both agree that the biggest hurdle that we're still, pursuing is the legal side. And that just comes with finding someone, they're not cheap first and foremost. And, so it comes with just trying to find someone that can help us on the right path and just things that entail such as trademarking is the first and biggest one for us is trademarking, and others as well. And so just reaching out to different ones and seeing if there's any people that our parents may know or friends may know. So that's been a huge, I would say, hurdle that we're trying to conquer.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's been a learning process. I don't know if I could pinpoint it to, one specific thing, but everything that we're doing here is new to Max and I. We're learning how to, form an LLC. We're learning how to use social media to market. We're still struggling with that. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing because you have to be very creative when it comes to like what to post online and what's going to actually draw an audience's attention. The nice thing was Max and I had a good base to start with our, friends and family. But the issue is we're trying to target 18 to 25-year-olds. Max and I are both at 25 now. Our audience, like our age group and our friend group is getting a little too old. And it's not like that people don't go to college late. It's just that's not where the majority of people that we're looking at are. And so I would say like the big learning curve between what we used to do with social media for fun and what we're doing now, where we have to use it professionally, we have to be consistent with it. And we have to put, relatable content out there.
With those challenges, people don't understand that starting a business is hard. It's not easy by no means. And so with that, have you ever thought about just quitting? And if you have, why?
No, I could just literally leave it.
It's a good answer.
But it's easily no. I think Tay and I are too passionate in this project to even consider giving up. And we just see so much good coming out of it. We have a busy life as it is, and it's only going to get busier. And right now we're balancing, balancing pretty well with our real world jobs and also this business. And we're doing a pretty good job of maintaining both. So at no point was I overwhelmed. And I think that it's going to continue. And, just that's the exciting part is where it can go. There's always going to be students. And so this need is never going to go away. And so we think that it can do a lot of good for students.
So I want to kind of touch on something that I kind of have started to touch on with a lot of our guests, which is kind of your upbringing. What did you guys spend your time doing when you were growing up?
Yeah. So I grew up playing every sport under the sun. I don't think there wasn't one I played competitively at some point in my life. I know from a young age, I started off playing soccer and tennis. My family was really big into tennis. And so those are the two sports I sort of carried with me throughout life. Really enjoyed those. But, as a kid, actually, my biggest motivation, which it's funny, it sort of was trying to live an entrepreneur lifestyle, but I wanted to be a surgeon and have my own practice, an orthopedic surgeon specifically. Obviously, I graduated with a degree in mathematics, so that really didn't pan out. But no, from I think a young age, one of my best friend's dad, he was the head of a department, a radiation oncology department at a hospital by me. I always talked to him. He was a surgeon. It sounded really cool. I loved the idea. I had a few family members that were doctors and surgeons. And I was like, this is awesome. And, I ended up pivoting, which is, a very valuable life skill to learn, that not everything's going to work out perfectly. But I ended up pivoting my junior year of college to a different major and a completely different career focus. But that was really how I was brought up. I was motivated to do something on my own, but it was not in the industry that I ended up in.
What about you, Max?
Yeah, I mean, same start. Sports was basically life. I played everything as well. I just loved the competition and just getting out there and being a part of a team, so to speak. For me, at a young age, I gravitated towards like science and math classes, and sort of that evolved as I got older to then shadowing physicians. And so that led me down the pre-health track or pre-med track in college. Pre-med throughout all 4 years, neuroscience degree. And so medical school was on my mind. And then I knew I wanted to take a gap year, and basically found out that maybe this isn't right for me. And so I've been on the physician assistant program side and applying to try to get in there. But the competition, problem solving, tinkering, like all those things really was passionate in. And so as we move into this kind of entrepreneur life, those things kind of check off, is that, never ending. There's always something to do, and you always have to figure out how to solve a problem because there's always going to be something.
And I kind of figured that you guys were both going to have kind of that sports answer, and also, obviously your time at Ursinus with each of your respective majors. But the connection that I made when I was thinking about that actually before the show with intuition, essentially what it is you're giving people the opportunity to see a class in a different light, that, you're describing what a class is like and trying to help the students. You guys were busy in college. You guys played sports, right? The problem that you saw, I see it as well, is I don't know if I have time to do certain classes. And I thought it was really interesting that you guys both kind of played sports, and I'm sure you had probably the same problems as I did in that aspect. So I thought that was really cool. Going off of that, working together, what's that like? What are some advantages? What are some disadvantages? I'm sure you guys have gotten into your fair share of little arguments or what have you, or I don't know if you argue or not, but what's it been like working with a co-founder?
Yeah, I mean, I can start off here, but it's been surprisingly a lot more calm than our personal lives. Like when we meet up to go out or something like that, is a lot more argumentative than intuition has been, which is a shock, I think, to both of us. I mean, it's been actually sort of, very helpful in the sense of, if I'm busy, Max is usually available. If Max is busy, I'm usually available. We have a similar mindset with this, so we're able to sort of move forward without having to check with each other too much. And nothing that we do, we have found that out. Nothing that we do is really permanent until it's launched, and which is sort of nice. Where if somebody makes a mistake, we can always go back on it. If somebody doesn't agree, then maybe we move forward with one thing. We'll have a discussion, and then we'll continue on. But it's been helpful. I mean, there's been nothing else like that. I don't think my motivation would be nearly as high if I was working on it alone. Because there's always somebody there to, keep me in check and make sure that, we're doing what we need to do. And I'm sure that I do the same for Max. If he gets, preoccupied, we can go back to being able to work on this. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest advantage is, somebody else there to keep the process moving along when life gets in the way for you.
Yeah, and going based off of that, Tate and I, because we had different majors, we didn't work on projects that often, right? So we didn't know how that would work out. Now we've hung out a bunch and going out, and so that is much different than we experienced, and I think are surprised when it comes to the business, is because in the real life, we'll butt heads all the time. But when it comes down to actually taking the time and being serious on something such as intuition, it's easy for us to really just put all of that away, focus on what's important. And because we both have similar minds when it comes to what we want out of it and what it to look, anything that kind of differs in what we'd like to see or any thoughts, it's very minor, and one can there's no really arguments, I would say. If any, it's just very small and minor and maybe trivial, I would say. So it's been easy, honestly, to work with Tate. So I think that's been very beneficial, especially in the most important start, which is that startup phase. You know, you don't want to be taking forever. You guys want to make sure that what you put out is exactly what you imagine it to be. And so it's important to be on the same side.
There you go. A little shameless plug.
There you go.
Intuition. Where do you guys see this going? What is your prediction for your success?
This question could be answered in short term and long term.
Long term. Let's go long term.
Long term. Okay, I was going to say because obviously our focus right now is short term, but we've thought about everything.
Right.
So long term, our goal would be to get this moving internationally. Our goal is to I have connections from foreign exchange students in Finland that have already reached out and said I'd love to push this out there. Obviously, short term, we're looking around the U.S., but long term, we want to get this international. I think our biggest goal is to find people to partner with. There's a few great websites out there that sort of fill gaps that we aren't able to fill. And so our goal is to partner with these, either have them buy us out, have us, be a 50-50 partnership, something like that. And that's, way down the line. But it's to really create a one-stop shop for college students. There's not a single college student, whether you're community college, whether you go for a year, whether you're at a 4-year degree program or even grad school. We want you to download our app or go on our website, sign up for an account, and you'll use this almost every day of your life. Obviously, we're not there yet, but I have confidence in both Max and myself that we can get there within 3 to 4 years, hopefully, is our goal. But we don't want this to just be a U.S. college thing or a liberal arts college thing. We want this to be something that people are using internationally and hopefully allowing people to connect internationally as well through it.
I want to kind of talk to our audience a little bit. There's plenty of the people that are listening to this podcast that obviously that come into the UImagine Center and seek guidance from us. And I want to know what advice that you would give anybody else that's looking to start a startup.
Just obviously just be very passionate in that project that you want to pursue. And I think Tate and I both can say that we didn't want to have any regrets down the road saying like, oh, I wish we did this, right? Like if you're passionate in something and sort of the stars align, you have the time. Like if there's any silver lining to this, it was the pandemic because it gave, Tate and I were both in a spot where we had more downtime to like pursue this thing. And so, if that all checks out and you're very passionate, just go for it. You're young, you're in your 20s, when you graduate. And so you have time to experiment and honestly just learn from your failures because obviously the saying has been said over and over again, but you learn the most from failing. And so what do you have to lose, right? So just go for it.
Yeah. And I would just say the biggest thing and the biggest piece of advice Max and I have learned, we don't have any investors. We haven't gotten a grant for this. We're doing this all out of our own pocket. And the biggest piece of advice I could give for anyone that's started the process or thinking about starting it is abuse connections. And I would say use, but using isn't even enough because there are people that I reached out to that were like friends' parents from middle school that I haven't talked to. And 7 years out of college? So 7 years from freshman year in college. So like I haven't been in middle school in over 10 years. And I've texted them and, maybe they were lawyers, accountants, something like that, trying to find some way for them to help me out. Talking to friends' parents that have started their own businesses. One of my dad's work friends formed an LLC recently and I reached out to him, like some guy that I've never met before, but it's through my dad that I was able to meet him. And so that's not just a big money saver, but you get a lot of helpful advice and guidance. Any like avenue that you can go down to. Maureen at the UImagine Center, she pointed us in the direction of Venture Cafe, which is a Philadelphia startup sort of roundtable that they had going on. They gave us an idea that we've actually now started to implement into our website.
That's awesome.
And so we haven't spent a dime on that. That was one of the most helpful things. We would have never gotten that information anywhere else. And I think that was probably the biggest piece of information. Make time for other people to give you advice, give you feedback, and I guarantee you it'll go a long way.
Back in March 2020, the world was hit with the pandemic, as everyone knows. Tate has Rona season on a sweatshirt. Everyone's familiar with this. And how has that pandemic impacted you and Intuition and like the startup phase?
Like I said, I touched on it briefly. It's kind of the reason how this began, is that, we had a lot of time on our hands, and again, whenever we were on the phone talking, we would still come up, just like we did in college, just coming up with random ideas of having $1 million, even $1 billion. I'll put $1 billion because Tate doesn't like when I say $1 million business. I do.
Think big.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right? And so we kind of brought this back up and was like, I think we should honestly do this. Let's go for it. We started small. Again, another thing to say is take baby steps. Don't start think in the present, because that's where it matters, is to just set up micro goals is very important, because those are obtainable. And so that's what we did. We started very small. I think I'm trying to remember how we started, was just coming up with how would this look. Now we did something small in the You Imagine or the Bear Innovation Competition. We scratched that whole thing. We started all over. And we're like, okay, let's go there. Then the next thing, what do we have to do? All right, let's reach back out to Maureen, because she was very helpful during that process. What else? Okay, let's try to validate this idea. Another thing, make sure you validate your idea before you go actually putting any kind of money into it. And so we basically posted on our social medias accounts and tried to get any responses there. And so that's how it all basically, and Tate and I, like now looking back, we've had that conversation of like, wow, we did, like, it just happened. It was just like that. It went from one thing and it kept going and going and going and going and didn't stop. And then we could look back and we're like, wow, we did all of this in X amount of months. So where are we at? April. So I would say like kind of 3.5 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I was going to say, for the pandemic, I think it was weird because luckily it wasn't in March. We had a few things that sort of lined up for Max and I. We weren't pushing a product, so we never had to meet up to design this. We didn't have to go to manufacturers. We were making a business completely online that was already going to be used remotely. By this time, by January, Max and I had sort of gotten used to the remote aspect of things. So that was very helpful. The stars sort of aligned for us when it comes to that. There's no perfect time to start a business. You're going to be busy. And coincidentally, Max and I started it when we had more downtime, but now Max and I are working full-time. Well, I'm about to start a new job actually. So working full-time, we're both in school and we're both starting this business. So we actually almost got busier as this process went on. So there's no perfect time. The pandemic has helped because we got used to remote work. I think the biggest thing though was we were very lucky. I mean, we were starting a product that is a website or hopefully in the future an app. So there was no issues when it came to meeting up. Max and I think have met up 3 times maybe throughout this entire process to be able to start this idea. Not much. And we only live an hour away from each other. This isn't like something where we can't do it. It's something where we've chosen to work in a remote environment. And so the pandemic has actually helped us. The one issue is in-person outreach. We can't put a face to the name of, social media. Like we can't go to a school. Hopefully in September that'll change, but we are not even at the point of launching our website. So we have no need for that quite yet. So we're sort of hoping that everything works out perfectly where pandemic, restrictions start to die down. We start to be able to get on campus and, see students and meet them face to face.
This is one of my last questions, but how much of a pain, I'm so curious about this trademark stuff.
Yeah.
Is it that bad? It seems pretty bad. It seems like it's a pain.
So it's not easy to figure out what to do first off. So Max and I, we were deciding a trademark copyright. What's the difference? Where do we use them? Because we're never going to stop using them. The one thing, and I'll give quick advice. Of course, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice, legally binding advice.
Disclaimer. Just don't take Tate's legal advice.
Yeah, definitely talk to a lawyer.
Talk to a lawyer before taking Tate's legal advice.
But one of the biggest things is we didn't know initially that you have to copyright all the content on your website. So not only after this battle with our logo and our name that we're going to have to work with trademarks, but then as we start putting content on our website, we're going to have to copyright it. So it's a never ending fight for what exactly you need to do with this. It's also, there's a lot of legal jargon. It's like the paperwork isn't short. And so like watching any videos you can, honestly, talking to people that that are lawyers, lawyers, regardless of what kind of lawyer they are, they'll understand this a million times better than you will. A lot of them won't be able to do the paperwork for you, but if you have questions about different aspects of it, they can help you out without you having to pay them. So it's definitely a tedious process. The issue is also there's no guarantees. You can have a trademark or a copyright denied, and you just spend all that money and all that time. So I would say it's a rough process. It's not fun. It's not easy, but it absolutely will be necessary.
Yeah. Don't quit.
Exactly.
You guys are definitely an inspiration to a lot of, Ursinus college students. Tate, I think it's so interesting you're a math major, and like just starting in LLCs, a lot of people would think like you would have to pigeonhole yourself into just becoming a math teacher. What can you say to people that are just nervous about pigeonholing themselves?
Yeah, actually, this is thanks to teachers. So coincidentally, I loved all of my math teachers, but my advisor was Lisa Grossbauer, and she was actually the math teacher that wasn't a PhD. I'm pretty sure, I want to say, worked at Lockheed Martin. She was an engineer. And so she's the one that got me to switch over from chemistry to math. And I think the biggest thing with her was you have the ability. I was a theoretical math person. I was destined for PhD programs. The biggest thing for her is if it's not what you want to spend the next 5 to 7 years on your life doing, and you want to make this applicable, talk to teachers and reach out to people and find jobs that can get you using your math ability in real world applications. That helped. I reached out to business professors. I went into finance. I worked at JP Morgan, and now I'll be working at Brown Brothers Harriman in Boston. So I went into finance. It's not necessarily the exact route, but math is very applicable there. There's a lot of different ways that you don't have to pigeonhole yourself. And I would say just because the track that you're on is putting you in that path, don't let that stop you from at least exploring other areas, whether that's internships, whether that's just taking a class somewhere else. I did a game theory independent study. I thought that was really cool, and it taught me more about finance. So you just explore other avenues before you actually decide on that path.
That's all that we have for you today. Go ahead and plug Intuition, when the launch is, whatever you want to say about it. The floor is yours.
Right now we still have on LinkedIn our internship program that's still on. People are interested or know someone that wants a unique experience over the summer. You can find us on LinkedIn or even Instagram. And so we are still interviewing different students. And yeah, Tate, if you have anything.
Yeah, our Instagram and Twitter handles are at intuition_LLC. For both of those, LinkedIn, it's a little more difficult to find. If you went on to Max or I personal page, you could easily find it, but it's Intuition, LLC. Our logo is very unique. It's very bright, easily findable. Our website plans to be launched, end of May, probably around right now, I think we're looking at May 31st, or right around Memorial Day weekend. That will be allintuition.com. It's, we own the domain and everything, but we're in that process. So we're really excited about it. We'll absolutely be staying in touch with Ursinus and you guys as this process moves forward, but we appreciate you guys having us on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the merch. Don't forget the merch.
And the merch will be out.
The merch.
We'll make sure to promote you guys. Don't worry. Thank you, everybody, for watching episode 4 of the Sparks to Skyscrapers podcast. Or if you listened, thank you for that too. Obviously, can't discriminate against the Spotify and Apple podcast audience. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time on From Sparks to Skyscrapers.